Welcome to CS Radio. Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 233 of CS Radio. I'm J. Michael DeAngelis.
And I'm Natty Leach.
Natty, Wednesdays keep sneaking up on me.
And why is that, Michael?
I think it's because my fall schedule is such that I'm now working from home Mondays and Tuesdays, and everything post-Friday just becomes a blur.
Yeah. So Wednesday is Monday. In some
Wednesday
way.
as my first physical day in the office does kind of throw me, and like people already telling me, like asking me about the weekend and stuff. I'm like, the weekend?
Yeah. Get ready.
Oh, yeah, it's in 2 days.
Hump day.
So, yeah, so...
so you're completely ill-prepared for today.
As always. And, you know, we talked last week about how many events and career fairs have been going on. That's still true. Virtual fair this week as we record, and as you watch this, Biosciences fair on Friday. So we're still in career fair mode.
Yeah.
Just outside the studio here, we've got 2 or 3 employers on campus today conducting interviews. Lots and lots of info sessions. I was trying to help some students get access to those today. So everything's still in high gear here, and it feels like it.
There's so much going on. Every student I see, I'm like, there's so much. Just keep your eyes open, because I feel like it's so easy to let things go by because it's happening so quickly.
Yeah. We were having our director, Barb, and I were having a director with our website vendor, Uconnect, and discussing, you know, some things that could be like, you know, quality of life kind of changes that we could make.
Yeah.
And, you know, Barb was like, you know, I know we decided against it, but I don't know why we just don't have the site just auto-publish every event that comes in. And I was like, because I think you'll find out real fast what a bad idea that is.
It's a lot.
There's so many.
Especially because we have all our employer partners and the virtual events that they post.
Exactly.
Which are great. I mean, I'm often surprised by even great companies who are maybe more West Coast or in industries that don't as often come to either Philadelphia or our school for their recruiting efforts. We'll still have really cool things in there posted. Like, I don't think Blizzard Activision has come in the past, but they have an info session that's
they've come to a couple career fairs, but that's in the distant past.
Yeah, that was like, I think 5+, like pre-COVID times.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so it's been a while. I think they mostly probably do stuff on the West Coast now and don't travel as much. But they have stuff that is open and geared towards Penn students that's there virtually.
Makes me want to log into WoW. I haven't done that in a long time. Is my Death Knight still there waiting for me?
I'm sure he is. Whenever Emily hears about WoW, she goes like this.
Folks, that's only going to translate on the video podcast. That part,
we are a visual medium now.
That part is not going to read in the audio portion.
For our audio listeners, I put a W, made a shocked face, and another W on the other side of my face.
With your fingers.
Yes.
Yes.
Which spells out
WoW.
There we go.
Or World of Warcraft. Used to be, I was deep into that for a while.
I know you were. Still are sometimes.
No, I mean, it's like at least 5 years since I've played that.
It's been that long? I feel like I still remember you talking about expansions. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's I don't even know how many expansions ago. 3, probably. I mean, so like in the grand scheme of things, that doesn't sound like so many, but I'm way out of touch, even like what the state of that game is right now.
And it's not just the game.
The whole world of Warcraft
that you're out of touch with.
Oh, well. So anyway, that's got nothing.
Speaking of out of touch,
got nothing to do with anything other than I'm sure Blizzard, like many video game companies, is doing a lot of investigating and investing in AI.
I've heard of this.
You've heard of this thing?
Yeah.
So, yeah, because you're not out of touch.
No.
And Natty, you came across a great article from our friends at the Muse titled "What Companies Mean When They Say Don't Use AI in Your Job Applications." And what's really fascinating is what sold me on a topic here is that the employer they interview in here is an AI company.
Yeah, Anthropic, who has Claude, one of the bigger LLM models that people use.
When I did my preceptorial with the Mask and Wig Club, one of the panelists talked about how much he enjoys using Claude because, unlike ChatGPT, you can tell Claude, "Don't remember me."
Forget about me.
And so he uses Claude to get feedback on his scripts. And he essentially wipes Claude's memory every time to get a fresh audience. And I thought that was really interesting way of using AI. He said, so instead of sending this out to my friends and being like, for the 500th time, "Oh, will you read my script?" I just show it to Claude for my first pass. And I was like, and does Claude give you good notes? And he said, for a first draft, yeah, because it'll tell me if like the structure works.
Yeah.
And I was like, wacky. It was, I would be curious to try it because that's not something I had even considered in the realm of using AI for writing. I mean, that's generally like people are like, no.
So I saw a graph recently, and it was how people are using AI in their daily life or in whatever they do. And it was over time, plotted over time. And initially, all of these large language model systems like Claude, like ChatGPT, like Gemini, it was dominated by writing. Like people were using it for writing different things. I'm sure that it encapsulates some of more helping them with script writing potentially, but also I think just writing like correspondence and emails and stuff like that. But the writing side has dipped down over time, whereas other things of like having it be a sounding board or having it be even a companion has gone up. So all these other things that were like super low at the start are creeping up as writing itself goes down, which I think is a good sign because it helps us know that people aren't just using it at face value. They aren't just saying, do this, copy and paste, here it is. I think that was one of the bigger concerns when those first started blowing up a few years ago, especially from an academic setting. We had a lot of faculty members who were like, well, how do we use this and know that this is a student's work and not just something regurgitated from AI?
So what I thought was interesting, and we'll dive into the details of it, but the sort of the broad strokes here is that they were saying, if we're interviewing you or if you're applying, we're going to just kind of take it as read that you have an interest in using AI.
Yes.
Right? What we want to know is, who are you as a person? And can you communicate without having to rely on AI?
Yes. And it says they explicitly are asking, do not use AI in any part of the process at all, is their request for that reason. I think it speaks to a lot of things we talk about all the time about bringing the humanity to the application, which will obviously we've talked about the reasons why it might benefit you in particular for making a great connection with someone, finding the right company, the right culture fit for you. But I think from this side, it also, from Anthropic's position, helps them better see those same exact things for the person they're talking with, rather than getting thousands of people who all sound vaguely exactly the same.
Well, yeah. I mean, so that's something we've talked about before, whereas with, if you're making an application yourself, your strengths are your own, your mistakes are your own, it's you. And it's uniquely you. And yes, even pre-AI, certainly there are resume templates and there are cover letter templates, and you get a sense of somebody who's working off a template, or they all kind of sound the same, and the ones that don't stand out. So it's exactly the same with AI, because Claude is going to give Natty basically the same advice he gives me.
Yes, unless I find a way to make it
not
more
he.
Natty.
I'm not doing that.
You're coming around.
Nope.
I can see he's starting to crack.
I've never used Claude. Although
You use Chat GPT.
I have used ChatGPT. You certainly can't avoid using Google Gemini, because if you Google something, Gemini gives you the top answer. Yeah,
and because they helped us give ice cream to students and give free
not against
access.
it. Yeah, but so in terms of like a unique platform that's not embedded in something, I guess ChatGPT is the only one I've used, because now
That you've gone out of your way.
yeah, because now the Copilot is sort of embedded into the Microsoft Office suite. I really don't ask that anything ever. But I have gone to ChatGPT for some pretty specific tasks in the past.
Yeah. I mean, I think at this point we're at the level where so many people are using it for all manner of things, whether small or big, that it's going to be a part of things. And one of the quotes that they have here is from the CEO of Sales Folks. I don't really know that company very well. But
Sales Folks?
Yeah, I thought I was going to say Force, but it doesn't. I had to correct myself for a second internally. But they interviewed this person, and they got to a point that I think is also something that we emphasize a lot, but the idea that AI as being a useful tool for people, in particular mentioning like seeing the allure of how AI can help them apply to more things than they ever applied to before. And we've seen this in our work, both here at Penn and also in the conferences that we go to. I think over the summer, we probably haven't had a chance to talk about this all this much, but the Handshake conference that we go to that's virtual every year, one of the highlights that they shared from a national trend across Handshake usage was that job postings and internship postings as well are slightly down for the year. I think if I remember correctly, I'm going off of memory here from months ago. I think it was somewhere in like the 10 to 15% range that it was down. Where on the flip side of that, applications were up. I think it was something like 20%.
Yeah.
So, combine those two on both sides of that, that's a pretty big delta to help add to the feeling of competitiveness and the feeling that you have to apply to tons of different things. I think what this person is kind of speaking to, the idea that it is a helpful tool, is great because it does help you apply to more things.
Right.
But a lot of our advice is kind of finding those places to interject. And some of the article goes through this too, but like, where can you make it more you? Where can you make it more Natty? Where can you make it more Mike?
Right. And just because AI makes something easier, or just because anything makes something easier, doesn't mean you should go ahead and just do it, right? There's something to be said about casting 1 million applications to the wind, but it's usually not the best strategy.
No, I think it's a strategy. I think it's entirely valid to have as part of your overall strategy. But I think if that's the only thing you do, you're going to be missing a huge piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, it's definitely good to cover as many bases as possible, but if you are kind of just giving everyone the same AI generated application, you're not going to stand out in any way. You're not going to have any sort of advantage.
So I wonder a little bit, they mentioned that they felt a lot of the applications going way up was due to AI facilitating the ease of which people can apply to more things.
Yes.
If someone reasonably had a few hours they are dedicating every week or so to the job application before they were submitting 5 applications, AI is helping them submit 20.
Double that,
whatever it might be. I wonder how much of that is a mix of AI and then also how competitive things are.
I mean,
there are less jobs, so do people feel more like they need to apply to more of those things to find the right thing?
Yes, I think that's probably true. If it was a really booming job market right now, maybe people would feel less compelled to do 100, 500, 1,000 applications. Because they feel more secure in their chances of landing something that they're really interested in. So those two things converging, right? It's converging for a reason. One thing probably wouldn't happen without the other, in quite the same way.
Yeah. It's a perfect storm.
And we've seen this before. I mean, even before this sort of widely adopted use of generative AI, which has happened in the last 2 or 3 years, I can remember doing some statistics and looking at job applications and specifically at some of our online programs. And I was like, ooh, there's someone really throwing the stats here.
Yeah.
And that person had applied to something like 2,000 jobs.
Yep.
And when questioned about it, they had written a bot to do it for them, which, on the one hand, I was like, well, talk about that.
Work smarter, not harder.
Yeah, I was like, but it's not getting you any results.
Yes. So yeah, you might be applying to thousands of things, but are you hearing back? Are you yielding as much as you would if you had really spent the time yourself to craft it and make it your own? And I was surprised because I look at the numbers every year, and we noticed ourselves that applications are absolutely up at Penn as well. Those numbers have also increased here just for our population of students. I think it was something like 240,000 applications over the last year from just Penn undergrads, just from the undergrad population. And obviously that's just in 1 year. You probably have to reduce that even by a quarter for the seniors who might already have offers from return offers and stuff like that, or who might not be seeking at that time. So I think that's huge numbers. In Penn's, our environment's a little bit weird, where I think on one hand we still see some of this in reality, like we see the ways in which either AI is assisting or the landscape is more competitive and students are applying to more and more things. But on the other hand, I think we also have a little bit of an advantage where we have the privilege of we work at an institution like Penn, and our students are largely successful through this process.
Yeah.
Even if they are submitting more applications than maybe they did in the past, our placements are still really good. I've also been looking at the class of 2025's outcome data, stronger than the class of 2024's in small ways, but it's largely the same. I mean, year to year, if you look at our stats, over time,
strong and
it's
consistent,
always pretty similar and very, very strong. So I think in some ways we might miss a piece of the larger puzzle because of that privilege that we have working at an institution like Penn, where our students are already getting noticed, sometimes off of name brand recognition.
And we have, like I just said, just outside the door, there's 3 employers here on campus interviewing students. And, as we said many times, back in the day, we had dozens of employers a day. But even the fact that we have 3, that's 3 more than most places have right now.
And they're great companies, like companies of interest for lots of people. And then I think sometimes that actually almost exacerbates the issue where we're in that middle ground of our students do great and there is that name brand recognition for being at Penn, but also it leads to the potential that students just kind of coast on that and don't put as much of themselves into the process because maybe they're in that in-between of, I'm doing great here at Penn. I should be interviewed by anyone I apply to. I'm just going to throw my resume that I put into ChatGPT out there and see how it goes. But then they miss that whole segment of being seen as an actual person. Through the application process. So I think that's advice we often give is finding ways to break out of the mold of making it seem like you're just every other candidate.
Yeah, for sure. So, Natty, I think generally speaking, you're further along on the pro line of the spectrum than I am when it comes to these sorts of things. So what are some ways that you would suggest students could wisely use AI in their job application process?
So the Muse article itself suggests the idea of, rather than just saying, hey, write me this, it suggests putting in your own, what you've already started with. Here's the resume that I have. How can I gear this more towards this job description? Copy and paste that in. Or towards a field that is really valuing skills like data analysis and quantitative research, or like whatever kind of keywords that are things that you want to get across. And then I'll help kind of tweak and rephrase things just slightly. So you still have your voice in there in some ways, but also it's optimized from a keyword perspective. I think that's a great way to use it. I think it could be a good starting point on the other end of that spectrum. It could be you don't even know how to start. So just asking, like, what does a starting point of a cover letter look like for a retail
this type
industry?
Of job,
and see how they do that. And then, zhuzh it up from there. Maybe that includes you putting in, last summer I worked here. Maybe you just say it very casually. Last summer I was doing this. I worked on these types of projects. I really enjoyed it because of X, Y, and Z. Can you write this in a slightly more professional way that would fit into a cover letter? And see how it kind of, again.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. And then you have to kind of go back. I mean, again, I'm a professional writer, so I'm not often using, though I have, but I'm not often using AI for any sort of writing prompts. But I've got Grammarly on my computer.
Yeah, then you are.
So it's not prompting me, but it's suggesting different ways of saying things, or or telling me that the way I phrase something is not grammatically correct. And Grammarly is very, very, very by the book.
Yes.
And sometimes I look at the suggestions and I go, I would never say that.
Well, I was gonna say, yeah. Sometimes like
would
this
never say
character would never say it this way.
Well, not even for me. Forget about that. I actually disable it when I'm writing a script. But even just I'm writing an email, I'm like, well, I'm just writing Natty. Like, I'm not writing the Queen of England. Rest in peace. I'm not writing the King of England either. You know,
I have aspirations.
I'm not saying that you don't, but the way that I speak to you, regardless of your aspirations, will be different than if I were writing to the King of England.
Maybe it shouldn't be.
Maybe it shouldn't be. Grammarly thinks it shouldn't be.
No,
I
prefer.
You know,
that.
so I think that you do. You know, and there's lots and lots of memes and discussions about how to spot AI. ChatGPT apparently overusing the M dash.
I use the M dash.
I use the M dash all the time. I'm like, really, get off ChatGPT's back.
I've seen a lot of people with now anxiety for using the M dash
because like they're going to think, oh, right, that's the telltale sign of AI.
Yeah.
I'm like, but people use an M dash.
Yeah. I mean, when I learned how to actually use that properly, it unlocked so much for me in my writing because the way I think and I speak will often work in ways that use an M dash. Whereas when I was just like kind of typing things out, it's like it felt very boxy and tight, and like it didn't feel like it was actually flowing the way I would say something.
It's very interesting, particularly when it comes to script writing. I'm a big user of the M dash because I think so when you write a script, it's kind of like writing a piece of music.
Mm-hmm.
The punctuation that you use and the spacing that you use suggests how the character should say those words, right?
The flow of how to. Yeah.
So I'm a big proponent of using the M dash when I need to break up a line, but have it flow, right?
And you can use it almost like a parenthetical or something.
Right.
Too.
So whereas my co-writer Pete, he willy-nilly he uses the ellipsis, but an ellipsis to me is that's indicating a pause,
a literal pause,
right? Whereas an M dash is an insert.
Yes.
Right. So I say to Pete, I'm like, whoa, why? And he goes, oh no, you would say it like this. I'm going, well, that's not how I translate that.
Yeah,
right?
That's not how I would write.
Right. So, you know, but all those sorts of things, all those sorts of nuances are important, and sometimes your AI companion doesn't know all the context that you want. You can try and give it as much as possible, but then you have to be the final judge of, this is not how I would say that. This is too formal. This isn't formal enough, right? And so you have to then go in and make those final decisions and say, this is what I want this cover letter to be. This sounds like me.
Yes. And I think that's the most important thing, is making it sound like you, having it be authentic to who you are. Something that we talk about a lot in resume is having an interest section.
Oh, yeah.
AI could, I think, not do a great job unless you're actually giving it your true
Well, yeah, and then at that point, you're just telling them your interest.
May as well put it in anyway. But I think, and we heard recently, so I think it was Bloomingdale's maybe, or someone in retail who was at the fair. I was talking to a student who was talking about how they were emphasizing you need to have an interest section.
Oh,
we want to see that more than anything because...
I mean, I'm so pro that. That's really encouraging for me to hear.
Yeah, they're like all the resumes you all send us basically look the same. So give us an intersection. We have a better sense of who we're talking to, why we should be excited about it.
Yeah, I mean, I talk about it all the time, but like that is the focus of my interviewing workshop, because if you're there having the interview, they know what your resume says.
Yes.
They think you can do it. They're trying to get to know you, so don't panic when they start asking you about sports or movies or what your interests are.
Yeah. What's something you read recently?
Yeah. What are your interests outside of this industry?
Yeah.
What can you talk about? Because they want to know what you're like as a person. And yeah, it's exactly right. AI can't tell you what your interests are. No. It can help you talk about your interests.
So you could say like, I love Buffy the Vampire Slayer. How could I talk about my interest in Buffy and similar types of TV shows and media in a way that could sound interesting? I might give you some ideas. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think that's
come up with a
valid.
few ways to phrase that sound more exciting than just saying Buffy.
But I really like Buffy. Well,
Yeah.
why do you really like Buffy? I like vampires. Well, I think Buffy does a really good job at like doing allegory and using monsters as an allegory for being a teenager and the changes that you're going through and the fear of becoming an adult. I mean, that's what Buffy's all about.
I just like the vampires.
You just
just kidding. I know that's all true. So I mean that was also in. I mean that's really the crux of this article, though, is that idea of even if a company says don't use AI, you could use it as long as you're finding a way to make it still uniquely you, and don't just use it at face value.
Yeah. So I think that's right. I think what this article is trying to say is, if they're saying please do not use AI in your job materials, there are still circumstances in which you could consult with AI to help you put those applications together, but they're really looking for you to not copy and paste out of AI. They're looking for you to make these things yourself. So it would be okay to ask AI for some advice, just like you would ask Natty or I for some advice. But they really want the materials to be created by you and not created generatively.
Yeah.
And that sounds good. That sounds good to me. I'm a huge Star Trek fan. We were talking about it at lunch. And I think about, what are some of the things I like about Star Trek. And I like that they live in a future where they can ask the computer just about anything, and they can say, computer, run, like, what would it look like if we, ran the warp core through the deflector shield while cloaked, right? And it runs all these simulations, but the characters on Star Trek are presented as very intelligent,
often ethical too. Like I feel like there's a huge emphasis on the ethics of
absolutely,
in pretty much every Star Trek iteration that I've seen, especially from the main characters.
For sure, and using that as a springboard.
Yes.
Right, and say, I had this idea, and I let the computer run 500 simulations. They're always running like 500 simulations. And 499 times, the ship explodes. But that one time. So I'm going to focus on that one time, and how can I make that one time work? And, that's what I think we should all be working towards, where it's not a reliance on these things, but really using it as a tool to further our own goals.
I was gonna say it's a good thing you're not a Dune fan too, because I guess they have.
I'm a huge Dune fan.
But wouldn't that be kind of the opposite of how they use I mean, because they have the whole.
So the Dune Society basically rejects technology.
Yes. But it's because they had an over reliance on it at one point, which led to all of the wars and the challenges and stuff. So now it's highly restricted and regulated for how they use it in very specific ways.
But Dune is not an aspirational story the way that Star Trek is.
Yes, that's true. It's more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But even within Dune, there are characters that have become quote unquote human computers. And
what are they called again?
Mentats.
The Mentats.
And that's not. They're not really technology. They've chemically altered their brains to process things at the speed of computers.
Yes. So you're saying we should be more like
let's
Star
not do
Trek
that.
and less like
there's probably a happy medium, but Star Trek at least presents, as you said, ethical use and people who want to use the computer as a tool to further their own exploration and their own pursuit of knowledge. And they're all still experts at what they do, even though they've got this supercomputer. I mean, Commander Data is a literal walking computer.
That is true.
Right? In many ways, Spock is basically a computer, right?
Also true.
They seek to better themselves, and they seek to contribute to society.
Yes, and both of those characters have a certain humanity to them, even though they are them.
I mean, that's sort of the
cold
whole
and
point.
calculated.
That's sort of the whole
like appeal, I think, of those characters is the time when that shines through in some sort of way, or the situations.
Right.
where it
Right.
comes through.
And we can look at them. Oh well, if data can do it.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, again, it's a little bit hokey to say, but that's where I would hope that we would all get to. I wonder what a job application process looks like in the Star Trek universe. I know.
Well, the one movie they just find him at a bar or something, right? And then they're just like, "You're now the captain of the USS Enterprise."
Yeah, basically. Basically, he was good in a bar fight.
Yeah.
But
we're lost in the sauce.
yeah,
We've lost the thread.
we definitely are lost in the sauce. But
so go have a bar fight. Don't use AI, and you'll be fine.
then that's Michael and Natty's advice for today. But we're going to link this article in the show notes. I always like reading the Muse. I think they've always have interesting takes. We often rely on them to have our article discussions. And I just really, I thought, well, this is really something that we've got an AI employer saying, please don't use AI. And I just think their reasoning is super interesting and very, very in line with what we would say in general about a job application and in general about going on the job search. Again, they're going to take it as read that if you want to go work for them, you have an interest and perhaps an aptitude in using AI.
I think sometimes it sounds obvious to say it so explicitly, but I think also times people are busy. Your schedules are busy. You have a lot of other commitments, and it can be appealing to think through, the easier way for me to do this would be just to see what I can get to spit out.
Sure, 100%. Of course.
So I think it does help break it up in a way that continues to hit home the importance of how that you can actually see that benefit you in an application process from an employer's perspective.
Just, to me, it's the same as things we've seen in the past before AI was a concern. As simple as, all right, I'm going to just have AI write my cover letter. How much variation are you going to get asking it to write 50 cover letters for you?
Yeah.
It's the same thing where you have a cover letter template that you're using and you're using it for 50 job applications. It's so obvious. It's so obvious as the hiring officer when you've put just a little bit of personal effort in as opposed to a form letter. It's so obvious as a hiring officer, and I think it's the same thing with AI.
And I will also say, I feel like over the last few years, resumes and cover letters have gotten better when I've reviewed them from students.
Okay,
I think by and large, the resumes that I've seen over the last few years have gotten better and better. As just a first glance for my first time seeing and working with a student,
Great.
I think their floor has gone up tremendously. So I think a lot of the advice that I give is more about breaking things up, like where can you make this more interesting, more personal, more whatever to stand out to make it more unique to you. This isn't particularly AI related, but I had a student recently last week who was quantifying things, but was like, I'll round that up to 100 because that's more impressive. I'll round this up to a higher, more round number. And my advice was, no, keep it lower. You're not that far off. You're rounding up 4. You're going from 96 to 100. But if you're keeping it at 96, that's almost this sounds stupid, but it's more interesting of a number. And I think if a human being is reading that, it's almost more credible to be like, looks more specific.
96.
It might draw them in more to ask more questions in more detail about that very specific number. Oh, you did this thing with 17 people. How did that go?
Yeah.
As opposed to being just vaguely, I did this thing for 100 people.
Yeah.
It helps add a more specific and sometimes a human element that they can see kind of illustrated in their mind already when you're using really specific numbers like that sometimes. Even if it's not quite as big as what you would round it up to.
All right. Well, like I said, the link to the article is below. Check it out. There's a bunch of related articles that you can find at the bottom of this, including one that's really interesting about non-technical jobs in AI that people might be interested in. So if you do have an interest in AI, you're like, I'm not an engineer, I'm not a computer person. There's all sorts of things, including, with just like right out of Star Trek, AI ethicist is one of those jobs. Yeah. So super interesting. So there's a whole new world out there. And of course, even new things need old-fashioned jobs like marketing director, because you got to get people to use your product.
The other thing, one of the handshake trends thing I saw was that AI is the most like increasing keyword used in resumes across the board.
I believe it.
Which I think makes sense from both the perspective of obviously it's a newer thing that you're seeing, but also employers may be valuing people who are able to see and understand that in some sort of way.
So Natty and I are going to go roll up some new WoW characters, and we'll see you in the Matrix, and we'll see you next time on CS Radio. This podcast is produced by the University of Pennsylvania Career Services Office, a division of University Life. It was created by J. Michael DeAngelis and Amy Lynn Kirshner. Your hosts and producers are J. Michael DeAngelis and Natty Leach, and it's produced, mixed, and edited by Lorna Lynn. If you like this podcast, please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, or wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on Instagram and Threads at Penn Career Serve. We'll see you next time on CS Radio.